Thank you and welcome everybody. Sorry for the delay. Welcome to today's meeting of the Local Pension Board. As usual, this meeting is being broadcast live to the public. For those not able to watch live, the webcast will be recorded and made available for viewing on the County Council's website after the meeting. Before we begin, can I please remind everyone to only turn on their microphones when you wish to or are invited to speak. I've received apologies from Councillor Eddie Kelvin. And did you say, sorry, Angie, was there another one?
Mr. Saroy is present, but he's not able to take part at the moment because of connectivity issues.
Okay, thank you very much. So item 1 on the agenda, minutes of the meeting held on 29th October 2025. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on 29th October are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Can I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Is that agreed?
Yep.
Is there a formal way to record that, Angie, or?
I'm taking the notes, Chair.
Okay,
It's been seconded and agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, question time. Next, I can confirm that there are no questions received. Item 3, to advise of any other items which the Chairman has decided to take as urgent elsewhere on the agenda. Agenda item 3, I can confirm there are no urgent items to be taken. Item 4, could I now ask if any members have any declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda? Take that as no. Item 5. The first report on today's agenda is the Pension Fund Administration Report, October to December 2025, Quarter 3, at pages 7 to 32 of the agenda pack. Stuart Wells, Pension Projects Manager, is presenting this report. Over to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. So this is a regular administration report that I present to the board at each meeting. So this time we're covering the second quarter of 25-26, October to December, and the report covers governance areas including administration of the fund and the performance of the section. So I'll pick out, it's a fairly long report, so I shall pick out the key areas, but happy to take questions on any aspects of the report. So we'll start with the performance of the pension section, and the results for the quarter October to December can be found in Appendix A, and details of the workloads throughout October, November and December are shown in the report. Just wanted to mention on those workload grids, the two areas with a red rating, preserve benefits and aggregations. We continue to keep a close eye on these. Unfortunately, processing these cases does continue to be impacted by other areas, and the cloud remedy in particular has an impact on this in terms of the complexity, and resource has been moved away from these areas to address other such issues as contribution balancing and employer onboarding, which I'll pick up later in the report. And since January, resources have been impacted following the introduction of the new website. We are recruiting 2 new apprentices. We're in the process of finalising those. And whilst they will primarily be used to assist with the year-end issues that I'll cover later in the report, this should free up some resource to be allocated to the red-rated areas. In addition, recently appointed pension assistants are being trained to assist with some of these cases as well. However, realistically, numbers will be expected to remain high, at least in the short term. Just wanted to move on to the breaches log on point 13. So there was one area of concern in this quarter, and it related to an ongoing failure to pay contributions by South Leicester College. It's an unprecedented issue that they've experienced. Until now, the college has always paid their contributions correctly on time. There's been no issues at all. However, The pensions manager has reviewed the case using the pension regulators code, and on this occasion, this has been deemed as a material breach, and this has been reported to the pension regulator. The pension manager is in regular contact with the college, as well as the pension regulator. A payment plan is now in place. That's been agreed on both sides. The first 2 payments have been made in full and on time. So we're happy that the situation will be resolved fully and there'll be no impact on scheme member pension benefits. We don't expect the pension regulator to escalate this case, provided that the college stick to the plan. And this case will be captured in the annual breaches log at the end of the tax year. On to page 12.25, the pension websites. So we mentioned this at the previous meeting. Appreciate there's two new members of the board. So we've got a new website. This was launched on January the 6th. There was a slight delay from the original launch date of the 9th of December, following a decision to add additional forms of verifying identity, which allows members to register after verifying their identity using a selfie and comparing that to a passport or a driving license. And we've also added SMS multi-factor authentication. So we're quite happy with the level of security we've got for members with regards to the site. These facilities, though, needed additional testing, which caused the delay. But on the 7th of January, we started to we started to issue emails to scheme members who had previously been registered for the previous online facility, advising them that they would need to register for the new online facility, which we're calling My Pension. So we contacted pensioners, and then we contacted active members and deferred members. And we had an encouraging response to those emails. This did result in a significantly higher number of calls to the help desk during that first week. We were taking around 200 calls a day, which was getting on for 4 times as many as we normally get. So there was a lot of interest, but I'm happy to say that at the end of the first week, we'd had 10,000 members re-registered. And as of yesterday, we're now standing at just over 20,000 registered members on the site. So it's an encouraging position to be in. The previous website, we were at around 45,000, so there's still a way to go, but it's a good start. So I'll provide a further and probably final regular update on the website next time. We'll give you an update on the registration numbers at that point. Moving on to McCloud. So officers continue to work on the McCloud remedy, on the implementation of the remedy. We're currently focusing on adjusting pensions for pensioners who were eligible for an increase under the remedy. So for the newer members of the board who may not be familiar with McCloud, this was an age discrimination court case that resulted in changes being made to the scheme, and we've been working on it for quite some time now, ensuring all the areas that we need to update are being dealt with. So the cases are complex, but we continue to work away through these. So with regards to the pensioners that whose pensions are already in place but may need adjusting, there's currently 216 cases outstanding, and we'll give you an update on those at the next board meeting. Also mention dashboards. So nothing major to report directly to do with the pension dashboards program. However, indirectly linked to the pension dashboard programme officers have been involved in a procurement exercise to appoint a new mortality screening and address tracing providers. And we're working through that at the moment. The closing date for submissions to this for this exercise was 23rd of January. So we're just finalising scores at the moment. Yeah, hopefully we'll be in a position fairly shortly to announce winners and put contractual details in place. So again, we'll get a further update on this project at the next meeting. Just ahead of year end for 25-26, I just wanted to highlight a couple of areas that we're focusing on currently to reduce backlogs. And this relates to bringing new employers into the scheme and setting up their iConnect system. So iConnect is a portal that we have that allows employers to submit pensions data on a monthly basis directly from their payroll systems into our administration systems. And when a new employer joins the fund, one of their responsibilities is to ensure that payrolls adhere to this process. The onboarding exercise can be quite lengthy, depending on factors such as size, payroll reporting capabilities, and employer resource. But a significant part of that process is ensuring that the data submitted is correct. So obviously it's quite important that we spend a bit of time on making sure that everything is in place. So the onboarding process will also apply when an employer changes payroll provider. So it's not necessarily just new employers, but where they've switched from one payroll system to another, then we have to start again and make sure that that payroll system is doing what it's supposed to do. And there is a backlog currently of these cases. This is an exercise that is usually put on hold whilst the year-end exercise was in progress due to resource being prioritised to ensure that the year-end report was completed in good time to ensure that benefit statements were produced by statutory deadlines. So last year's year-end was quite challenging because of the number of payroll changes that took place, plus internal staffing changes as well, which resulted in time spent training inexperienced staff to manage the wider year-end project. Nevertheless, we are working through these backlogs. Currently, there are 47 employers that will need to be onboarded, but for some of those, they'll still need to complete the admission agreement process before the work can begin. So that's the current position with those. In addition to onboarding, I also wanted to mention contribution balancing, which again is linked to our iConnect portal. And this is, again, making sure that the figures that are submitted through the system balance with the amounts that employers have paid. So plenty match, but when they don't match, a query is raised with the employer and we establish what the issue is and make sure that data is corrected as required. And again, for resourcing reasons, this exercise is often put on hold whilst year end is underway. And for the same reasons as before, we have had a challenging year end. So the backlog hasn't cleared as quickly as we would hope, but we continue to work through that at the moment. Just move to access and fairness. So this is point 64 of the report. So the LGA emailed authorities to advise that the government will be implementing some of the changes following the access and fairness consultation, which closed in August. And Leicestershire's response to the consultation was reported to the board in September. So our understanding at the moment is that the government plans to phase in the changes to ease the administrative impact, and phase one will begin in April 2026. followed by phase 2, which at the moment there's no specific date, but it's going to be later in the year. And legislation will be laid at the start of March and take effect from the 1st of April. And the phase 1 changes cover survivor benefits and death grants, gender pension gap benefits, gender pension gap reporting, some changes around the McLeod remedy, abolition of lifetime allowance changes. Although the final two listed on the report, we now think will be moved into phase 2. But we're working through the detail of this at the moment. So there's a lot of this to digest, and we're planning to present a report to the board at the next board meeting. In addition to the access and fairness plans, there's also the access and protections consultation. So on the 13th of October, the government launched the consultation, which covers more proposals, which are linked into 4 areas, covering the normal minimum pension age, mayors and councillors, academies and application directions, and new fair deal. And Leicestershire's response to that consultation was issued in December, and a copy of this can be found in the appendix. And again, further details on this consultation and these changes will be covered in a future board meeting. Final section is the employer risk section. So officers continue to regularly review employer risk, and where there are outstanding admission agreements, these are reported to the board each quarter. And the position as of the 13th of January is stated in the report. So we continue to work through these, and we are chasing those outstanding cases regularly. And the cases that are not concluded by the end of the financial year will be escalated, and consideration will be given to imposing fines based on the circumstances of the case. That was all I intended to mention about this particular report, but happy to take questions on any aspect.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks, Chair.
Does anybody have any comments or questions on that report? I should. Yes, Andrew.
I just wanted to say that the new pension website looks really, really good. I've accessed it and I've had really success on that. So it's really good to see that we're evolving that service to make it easier for people to access it. And it's a nicer, more user-friendly website from that perspective. So yes, just wanted to feed that back.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? No, I've got a couple myself, if that's okay. I mean, you mentioned, the McLeod 216 cases there. There's other outstanding issues. I noticed in the report some red-rated areas. Obviously, you mentioned an increase in staff, which is a positive step. But is there any contingency plans? And also, are we monitoring if there's any impact on our members from these backlogs?
So, there isn't contingency plans as such. We are working on bringing new staff in, the appointment of the apprentices, recent additions to the workforce as well in terms of pension assistance. So these we expect to have an impact in the longer term. These people will need training and bringing up to speed in terms of these areas. So we continue to monitor it, Chair, but we're trying to balance this with everything else. The areas in particular, I mean, we would class as low priority in terms of the fact that the preserved benefits relate to the calculation of benefits for people that have left the scheme but are not yet entitled to a pension. So somebody that maybe stopped working for the council age 40, for example. So whilst we are ensuring that we try and keep on top of this the best we can. We are prioritising those members that will be impacted if their benefits aren't calculated. So with retirements, death cases, they're forever at the top of our list, and these are lower down. But yeah, at the moment it's a case of once these new members of staff are in and they're fully trained, we're hoping to see that will make a positive impact on these areas.
Okay, thank you. And with the looking ahead now, you mentioned, you know, the backlog of the onboarding cases. Looking ahead to LGR,
Yeah.
is there any concerns going ahead?
Well, there is
with the workload.
Yeah, I mean, LGR could certainly impact on this area as staff move from the county to whatever it becomes in the future. Yeah, it is a concern. So again, we're keeping an eye on what's going to happen. We are conscious of the fact that this may expand this area. So what we're doing at the moment, Chair, we're bringing more people into this area. They've moved into my particular team, and we are trying to ensure, it's early days, but we're trying to ensure that the backlogs are managed and more time is spent on this throughout the year. Whereas in the past, we were able to stop whilst the year-end exercise was underway and we'd catch up afterwards. Because this area is growing, we're looking to spend more time consistently throughout the year so we can get on top of this before LGR comes along. And then once the details of LGR are known, then again we'll have to review it at that point to establish that, yeah, we might need some more resource in this area.
Okay, thank you. I've got one more question, and Manjit has put a question in the chat as well.
Okay.
My last question would be about the college. I'm not sure if it's inappropriate to ask this, but perhaps the chair might like to be kept informed in real time how it goes. Obviously, you know, it's a worrying situation, but it seems like it's being handled and handled well. But if I could ask the chair be kept up to date on how that progresses.
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem at all.
Right, thank you. And have you got access to the chat to see Manjit's question?
I've
got it here. Point 10.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, in point 10, page 10, 2 apprentices are being taken on. Have we thought about agency staff?
The apprentices were our preferred route, but it is something that we will consider. I understand just the point that Manjit makes at the bottom. Ian has details of our discussion, so I understand there was a discussion that took place yesterday. So we will be considering that internally. I think Ian wants to come in, Chair.
Yeah, if I may, I can just make some comment there, Chair. If I may, it's Ian. Let me put my camera on. Beg your pardon. There we go. I put my camera on. Yeah, I did speak to Manjit as the chair briefly in preparation of this meeting, and he did mention about possibly considering sort of temporary resource to help us, agency staff, things of that nature. It's something I'll consider. I think I've got to balance that against the training requirements that we would need to give those agency staff and how long that would take. So it's the balance between time to invest to time to actually gain for people who aren't permanently going to stay with us. And that's what I've got to work through. But I am very aware there is an awful lot of work in pensions at the moment. It really is extraordinarily busy, as that report identifies. And we're getting more and more coming in, like the access and fairness changes, the year-end pressures, things like the college not making payment as efficiently as they should be, and things of that nature. So we're trying to balance an awful lot of different areas. So I will consider it, but I've just got to compare the resource time it takes in terms of training and guidance to what it actually provides for us. Is that all right, Chair?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think I see Helen's hand up.
Sorry, thank you. My question just got answered, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the last of the questions on this topic then? I shall take that as yes. So I'm happy to agree the recommendation at page 21 of the agenda, in that the board was recommended to consider the report with any areas of concern to be raised with the local pension committee. If there are no areas of concern, then please say so here. I note there are no concerns raised. Is that agreed? I'm going to assume everyone's happy to continue. So agenda item 6. Agenda item 6 is the pension fund key performance indicators at page 33 to 52 of the agenda. Stuart is presenting this report also. Over to you, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is to present to the board proposed improvements to how workloads and key performance indicator is presented in the quarterly report I've just presented to the board, whilst also aligning that data with the requirements of the fund's annual report. So as you'll now be aware, a regular administration report is presented to the board, and that includes KPIs and it includes information about workloads. And this information is used to highlight where we are with issues, and the KPIs are split into 2 categories: business process perspective, covering performance in respect of retirement and death cases, and then customer perspective, feedback, which measures member satisfaction levels. And we also use this information internally to assess workloads and highlight areas of concern more quickly and move internal resource as required. So a monthly update is circulated to the pension staff for awareness as well. In addition to the quarterly report, there's an annual report as well, and the annual position is published within that. However, the requirements for the annual report has recently changed, and there are now additional areas that we have to include in the fund annual report that aren't included in the data that's sent to the board. So with that in mind, officers have begun to review whether the data is presented in a manner that is clear and useful to the board, but additionally, whether the data that is presented to the board aligns with those requirements in the fund annual report. And for consistency, we'd like to be able to provide quarterly information to the board that aligns with those new annual report requirements, but without losing any of the categories that's currently being provided. So I'm proposing that the workload section will now show 1 quarterly table and not 3 monthly tables, as is currently the case. The number of workload areas will increase from 10 to 14 to align with those annual report requirements. The columns will display the number of cases completed in the quarter and the number of cases that remain, and a percentage of cases completed will also be shown. Retirements will be grouped into 1, although the annual report does require a split between active and deferred retirements. We're proposing to continue to group these 2 elements as 1, which is the current approach for consistency, although we will have to split them out at the annual report. So the KPIs for the quarter will continue to be included in the appendix, but expanded to align with the requirements for inclusion in the annual report, as well as the areas currently measured. And all the information can be found in the appendices. So we've got Appendix A, which shows the current approach. Appendix B, which shows the requirements from the scheme actuary board in respect of the annual, what needs to be included in the annual report. And then appendices C and D the proposed layout for the future reports. So we're asking the board to consider the proposals in the Appendix C and Appendix D. And following on from comments, if we can agree an approach, then we'll start to work through the implementation of those changes. So that's what I wanted to say as a starting point. Happy to take questions and comments at this stage.
Thank you, Stuart. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Andrew.
Stuart, I'm more than happy with the recommendations about the changes. I think what's really difficult to assess is performance, where you're benchmarking performance, about how it compares to other. It's either comparing over time or comparing with other authorities from that perspective. And it's just to give an indication of how it compares with a comparable source, because it's really hard to say whether is that better or is that worse. So it's how does this and it just thinking about how going back, how does that compare over the year, how does it compare with last year, or just some thought around how it can give some assurance to us around how we can assess that based on benchmarkable data, either historic or other areas that do similar benchmarking.
Right. Did you have any thoughts on a kind of time period, Andrew? Were you thinking of
18? Well, it's basically I'm looking to spot trends in negative, either up or down. And what I'm sort of suggesting is that it's probably about 18 months worth of data does sort of give you an indication as to where that looks. Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll give that some consideration, Andrew. Internally, we are measuring trends. So on a monthly basis, we keep the last 2 years on retirements and deaths at the moment. So I mean, with these new areas, that would probably have to build up over time, because some of these areas, in terms of how we present this, are new. But yeah, we'll certainly take that away. Brilliant, thank you.
Mr. Crook, you're on mute.
My apologies. Anthony, over to you.
He's on mute.
Anthony, you're on mute.
Anthony, you're on mute. We haven't heard you.
Is that better?
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Morning, Chair. Thank you. Morning, Stuart. Morning, all. Just Stuart, after my previous past involvement in these things, looking at Appendix C on page 49, I can't see any reference to the any of the disputes procedure cases. Am I missing anything?
No, that's not one of the areas that we currently report in that fashion. We do include within the admin report a regular section on IDRPs. So we do have that in the, I think it's on page, this month's quarterly report, it was mentioned at point 11 and point 12. So we do have that every month. We don't compare the numbers currently, but we do report on new cases each time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Anthony. Any more questions before we move on? Anthony, you got a hand up. You got another question?
No more questions.
Okay, thank you. So I'm happy to agree with the recommendation at page 35 of the agenda, in that the board was recommended to comment on the approach as outlined at appendices C and D of the report, which we have done. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thanks, all.
At agenda item 7 is the Pension Fund Business Plan and Budget 26-27 at pages 25 to 94 of the agenda. Simone Hinds, Assistant Director of Finance, Transformation and Commissioning, is present for this report, is presenting this report, my apologies. Over to you, Simone.
Thank you, and hopefully you should still be able to hear me through the room, but let me know if there's any issues.
We can.
You can hear me, okay, great, thank you. So, as you said, Chair, this is the business plan and budget report for 26-27, and there are 3 business plans actually attached as part of this report. So you have the administration, investment and governance business plans, as well as the budget for the next financial year. The administration business plan you have first at Appendix A, and you'll see from that the main priorities are quite similar to previous years actually, and Stuart's already mentioned a couple of them. So we've got phase 2 of the McLeod implementation as one of the focus. We've then got continued implementation of the National Pensions Dashboard Programme, and we'll also be reviewing the fund's main admin systems contract over the next 12 months as well. Then at Appendix B, you've got the investment business plan, and that covers 4 main areas. Again, similar to previous years, but with a slight different focus because of the Fit for the Future proposals and the need to engage Central in a much more focused way from April. But that business plan focuses on policy reviews, asset allocation, fund valuation and reporting. And as I said, you'll see through that there is a lot more closer engagement with Central because of Central's enhanced decision-making role, which should start from April and Fit for the Future. We've then introduced a governance business plan for next year, and again that is because of the Fit for the Future proposals, and it brings together those recommendations and makes sure that we are working towards compliance with those proposals. That business plan also includes a training plan for the year as well, and you have that at Appendix C. Then section 8 of the report onwards goes through the proposed budget for the pension fund for 26-27 and then future years as well. And just an important reminder that this is independent of the council's general fund budget, so the pension fund budget is separate. The table at paragraph 18 shows the budget position starting with the current year and shows sort of forecast outturn for the current year, and then shows it through to 27-28 onwards. And you've got again the similar categories of costs are similar to previous years, where you've got investment management costs, LGPS central costs, although I'll come back to those in a minute, staffing support, and then the actuarial costs as well. We have got some additional staffing costs included in the budget from next year, which is 1.5 FTE, and that is primarily to deal with the McLeod implementation and some of those other pressures that Stuart's mentioned actually already. Then just in terms of investment management costs, we do use a range of investment managers and we do pay a fee for this service, and you can see some more detail included at paragraph 15, I think. Those costs are variable. They do depend on the type of investments that we have and the performance of the managers as well. And we also expect those to increase as our assets under management increase because there are obviously more investments to place. This area will change, I think, as the Fit for the Future proposals kind of come on stream from April, and as Central take over that kind of management of the council's investments or the fund's investments, sorry, and the decisions are taken by Central rather than the fund. You can see from that table though that the total admin costs as a proportion of assets under management is broadly static, which is what we'd expect to see. So costs will rise with inflation and they will rise in proportion to assets under management rising as well. But there is more detail on all of the budget headings in the report. Just one issue I did want to flag is the budget for LGPS Central, which hasn't yet been approved for 26-27 yet, and isn't likely to be approved until towards the end of March, I think, this year. And that is more subject to change than prior years because of those Fit for the Future proposals and Central's expansion as part of that, and the headcount, the number of pools the number of funds that they're responsible for, and their overall headcount increasing from April. At this stage, we have included an estimate because shareholders aren't due to meet to consider that budget until later in March. I suspect that estimate might need to change once that budget has been approved by the shareholders. So we are likely, I think, to need to bring an update on that and potentially an updated budget to the next meeting in April, but we'll keep board informed of that. So I think that they are the main issues from the report. Board is asked to approve both the budget and the business plan, but happy to take any questions on any of that.
Thank you for that report. Is there any questions or comments? No, I've got two, if I may. I'm new to pensions. Prior to May, I'm still learning on the job. I've got to admit the management costs are eye-watering to me. Have we ever took a step back and seen if there's different ways of managing this?
We have a range of different types of investments, and they bring different types of costs with them. But I think it's important that the fund has a diverse range of investments, and they will bring a different fee structure. And I think the Fit for the Future proposals are, one of the intentions of those is to streamline the management costs, because more of our assets will come under the pool's control, and I think are expected longer term to help to reduce those management costs. But I can see Bhulesh has got his hand up, so I shall bring Bhulesh in, who is more of an expert on this than I am.
Thank you, Bhulesh.
What I'd like to say is that once a year we consider the investment strategy alongside Hymans Robertson, who are our investment advisor. And one of the things that we do look at is how much money we invest in certain asset classes. And alongside that, we have to have a look at the relative costs of investing in those asset classes. And over time, as more and more funds have become better funded, people have moved away from equities, which generally are cheaper, to more private markets. Now, private markets can include things like property and infrastructure and credit. All of these things are deemed to be slightly lower risk, which kind of helps with the move to a higher funding level, but consequently they carry slightly higher fees. So it's a trade-off between risk and fees and overall return required. So it is something that's considered every year, Chair.
Lovely, thank you for that. One more question, if I may. The governance review, will we also be taking a step back and having a look at how we're doing that? We've obviously got the board, we've got the committee, we've got subcommittees. Will the structure of how we do things be looked at as well during that review?
I think we will still be required to have a committee and a board and investment subcommittee. So I don't expect that overall structure will change, because even with the Fit for the Future proposals, the fund is still responsible for setting that strategic direction. So I think we will still certainly need committee and board. The investment subcommittee might need to take on a slightly different role because of Central's enhanced role. But that will be considered as part of the governance review. But we still need to make sure we have got the right governance structure in place for the fund to make the decisions that it needs to.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more questions or comments? No. So I'm happy to agree the recommendation at page 58 of the agenda, in that the board was recommended to note the business plan, training plan and pension fund budget for 2026. Is that agreed? Thank you. At agenda item 8 is the draft funding strategy statement at pages 85 to 156 of the agenda. Ian Howe, Pensions Manager, will introduce this item. Thank you, Ian. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. The fund has to have a fund valuation every 3 years, as I'm sure you know. The fund valuation, the last one was 31st of March 2025. And the assumptions that have been used in the calculation, the methodology has all been agreed, and that was approved by committee back in June 25. But behind the assumptions, each fund has to have what they call a funding strategy statement, an FSS. And the FSS underpins all the fund policies that effectively how those contribution rate settings work for each of the employers, and indeed when employers cease in the fund and things of that nature. So the FSS is a key document, and because it's so important, we consult with the employers every time we make a change to the FSS evaluation period. The FSS consultation took place with the employers in November, and that closed on the 11th of January. In addition to the employers, we also consulted with the Department for Education, the DfE, as they provide the guarantee for colleges and academies. We've had a number of replies, and they're detailed in the report. I don't propose to go through those individually, but we have had multiple replies from various parties, and we're working through those. And the fund is currently working on a fund response to the consultation. The changes or proposed changes are detailed in the report. I don't propose to go through them line by line. But one point I did just want to raise is the change to approach for what we call the corridor. When an employer ceases in the fund, we're proposing to move to a corridor approach, which effectively means that in a circumstance where we're well funded, which we now are, there is effectively less chance of us having to ask an employer for a deficit payment, and we're using an 85% likelihood on the lower level, but we're increasing it from 90 to 95 on the upper level, thereby to protect the fund and to hold some of that back if an employer leaves in surplus. That said, we will still look at paying an exit credit back to an employer if they are over the 95% funding. And there is already tried and tested methodology in place within the FSS in terms of how that calculation methodology works. We don't propose to change that element of it. This was taken to committee last week. Committee considered it, and I wanted to bring it to the board for your awareness as well. The final FSS changes will be drafted between now and early March, and the final FSS, along with the final valuation report from the fund actuary, will be taken to Pensions Committee in March for formal approval, and that will set the final rates for all of the employers, and that will be from April 2026 through to March 2029. The specific parts in the report in terms of the recommendations is to note the changes as detailed, and they will be considered by Pensions Committee in March 2026. And one particular point is to request your comments on what we call the negative 3% cap on the secondary rate. The reason we're actually asking for that particular point to be considered, in the consultation replies that we've received from some of the employers, they would like that 3% cap to be expanded to a higher number on the secondary rate because they feel that's too prudent. But that would only affect certain groups of employers in the fund, not all of them. We believe as officers that the 3% cap is the right value. The actuary has also agreed that they feel the 3% cap is the correct value. We believe that provides the sufficient prudence the fund requires, but we would like the board's view on that or comment, and then we'll include that in the final report that I take to committee in March. That's all I propose to say, Chair, but obviously happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that, Eamon. Is there any questions? Let me just check the chat. I think something come up in the chat. No. For my benefit, just so I understand, could you give me the employers that requested the secondary cap to be amended? What's the basis of their argument?
They would like the 3%. The 3% cap is just on the secondary. The secondary is only looking at the past service. So it's the past service element. And they feel that by keeping it at 3% as a negative, it's not allowing the rates to drop to a lower level. We're capping it at 3%. They feel by setting 3%, that is too great a prudence, and they feel that 3% should be a higher number, say 4% or 5%.
Their overall funding level, isn't it?
Yeah, because their funding level has improved. So the funding level, as the whole funding total, it's gone from 105% funded 2022 valuation to 140% funded at the 2025 valuation, which is fantastic, which is a really good improvement, and we should all be really, really pleased with that. Some of the employers have obviously improved in terms of their funding levels as well, some more than others, not all at that level, but some have improved beyond 140, some less than. Because we've capped it at 3% on the secondary, they feel that we're not giving back enough in terms of that reduction. They would like a greater reduction. The fund feels that that provides the sufficient prudence. The particular groups affected with the negative 3% cap are limited. There's only 4 groups of employers that are impacted, and not all of them, I must stress, not all of them at all. It's only small numbers of employers within those groups. And that depends on, as we're saying, the actual employer's own individual funding. But they would be some of the academies, the colleges, universities, and some of the town and parish councils. Does that help, Chair?
Yeah, that does help. I've got to admit and be honest, I'm inclined to agree with them. You know, the fund is doing well, markets are doing well. You know, it may be something we should at least consider a bit deeper. But I'm happy to open that to the wider group. Is there any further comments?
I think it's just if we were to raise it to 4%, what would be the impact? Because my understanding is that we're saying that it is prudent, but it would what would be the impact to the wider fund if we raised it, other than it would so the impact to the employee would be that they're paying more?
No. Andrew,
Sorry.
Can I come back on that particular point? It makes absolutely no difference at all to the scheme members. Nothing at all. It doesn't affect the scheme members' benefits. It doesn't affect anything the employees, scheme members pay in. This is purely the employers. So the impact would be the employers would have a lower contribution rate, so they won't be paying in as much in this 3-year period. The risk is that if, let's say, markets fell in the 3-year period, there's a greater likelihood, if we were to reduce the 3% to say 4% or 5%, that we would then end up having to put rates up at the next valuation, which is something we don't particularly want to do. We want to keep the prudence, to keep the funding level as stable as we possibly can, because employers don't particularly like fluctuating employer rates. But I'm willing to hear your collective comments as a board, and I will take those back, because what I'm going to propose to do is we've got to take this to committee for committee's final approval. If board or certain members of the board feel maybe a 3% cap is too prudent, and it could be, let's for example say 4%, I could ask the actuary to do some modelling on what that would actually mean in terms of cash flows. But I would take those comments back.
I think where I'm at is yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to put any hard opinion down. I think we should at least explore, like you say, maybe model, you know, what that would look like.
Okay.
Does anyone object to that? Oh, sorry, Simon, I was just seeing your hands up. Did you want to come in there?
Yeah, it's just Ian's partly covered the point I was going to make, actually, but it was just in terms of that future, that improved funding position. It was just because that is predicated on certain future investment returns as well, of sort of in the region of 6%, I think. So that funding position is only based on the fund achieving quite high future returns as well. So there is, I guess, as Ian said, the risk of us reducing the rate too far is that if those future investment returns aren't achieved at that level, you have then got the risk that rates would have to go up and there would be more volatility in the future. So I think what we're just trying to do is have that kind of more stability and kind of balance the risk to the fund as well.
Okay, thank you. Is that, yeah, is the hand up there? Is it Bhulesh?
You're on mute, Bhulesh. The day for it today.
Sorry. The only thing I'd add there to what Simone said is we've got two factors at play, haven't we? We've got the funding from the employers and the employees going into the fund, and we've got the investment returns, which is what Simone mentioned. And we've seen over the past couple of decades that drawdowns can be fairly fast, and when they do happen, they can be fairly deep. So the global financial crash, a minus 50% in equity markets. Not so long ago, during 2020, we had within 1 month 20-30% drop. So that funding position, although it looks great on paper at 140%, is predicated on future returns at being circa 6 point something percent per annum going forward. And that 140 can be taken away from us within months. And I think that the actuary is very cognizant of that, and they've done some modelling already. I wonder if we can pull something out from some of the things that we've already seen, Ian, the risk of regret type stuff. So maybe there is something we can share with the board as well after this meeting.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be great. Helen.
Thank you. Sorry, so I just wanted to make it really, really clear. So if this percentage goes up, that means that the employer would pay less contribution and it wouldn't affect the employee at all, or would it also affect the employee contribution?
No, it doesn't affect the employee contribution at all, Councillor Butler. The employee contributions are set within the actual scheme regulations. We are simply talking about the employer contributions here.
Fantastic, thank you.
So is there any more questions? I'll think on that topic. If we could leave that as just said, you'd send us a bit more information in the background. Is that okay?
Certainly.
Yeah, lovely.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and thank you for the report. Right, so I'm happy to agree the recommendations at page 92 of the agenda, in that the board notes the proposed amendments to the FFS that will be considered by Pensions Committee on the 20th of March 2026. The expanded information on the corridor approach for cessations, detail of the exit credit methodology is included, methodology even. The DFE guarantor is included in the asset of an exit credit on a case-by-case basis. A covenant review is taking place to review the minimum likelihood of success for the universities. The fund will retain one investment strategy. Is that agreed?
Yes.
Thank you. Board were further recommended to comment, which we have done, on whether the negative 3% cap on the secondary rate is too prudent, and should it be relaxed for certain employer groups. On the basis of receiving further information, should I put that in there? Is that agreed?
Subject to the review, I believe that should be agreed.
Thank you.
Can I just step in, Chair?
Yep.
Patrick's raised a procedural issue. I just need to confirm that members are happy for you to chair this meeting in the absence of the chair. Thank you. If I could have confirmation from people that are here.
Yes.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, happy with that.
Thank you for that, Angie. Are you happy for us to proceed?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. At agenda item 9, we have the draft investment strategy statement as pages 157 to 186 of the agenda. Bhulesh, Finance Business Partner for Investments, will present the report. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to inform the board of the key changes expected for the fund's investment strategy statement. The current investment strategy statement was approved by the local pension committee In March 2025, it usually has minor updates each year. And we've got some background at points 3 to 6, and I'll read some of those out for our new members. So all LGPS funds in England and Wales are required to have an ISS. The ISS sets out the fund's investment objectives, how investments are managed, the asset allocation, so that's what percentage of the fund is in which kind of asset classes, so equity or private credit or infrastructure, how we approach these risks, including the ways in which these risks are to be measured and managed, the approach to pooling, so that references LGPS Central, the investment manager that we have a part stake in, and how social, environmental and corporate governance considerations are taken into account. So the primary purpose of the ISS is to achieve long-term returns needed to pay pension obligations as they fall due. LGPS Central, so that's the pooling company, will be responsible for implementing our ISS in the future once certain legislation is enacted. Points 7, 8 and 9 talk to the main changes which are being incorporated into the 2026 draft version of the ISS. And there are a number of changes which will impact the LGPS, the fund and pooling, all of which have implications for the fund's ISS. So this ISS looks to comply as far as possible with draft regulations as they stand and draft guidance as it's currently understood. It is expected that more changes may be required between now and the pensions bill being made into law. It is intended to include all of these changes in the version that committee will receive in March 2026, alongside any updates to the fund's responsible investment approach following the responsible investment survey outcomes. The key changes within the ISS are at points 9, 1 to 4. The draft ISS references the fund's fit for the future position and acknowledges that its role will evolve within LGPS Central as they assume more responsibilities. The investment beliefs have been expanded to include preferences, offering clearer direction on the fund's expectations. While the fund will not be able to intervene with implementation, these preferences provide LGPS Central with a stronger steer. The revised ISS introduces a target and sets out a broad framework for local investment. The approach is intentionally flexible and expected to evolve over time. The responsible investment section has been streamlined and updated to reflect the latest draft regulations and requirements. Further refinements may follow, informed by the outcomes of the RI survey and ongoing regulatory developments. At the meeting last Friday of the Pension Committee, the committee approved commencement of a consultation with employers on the ISS. And at that point, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions for anyone? No? Happy to go back to you, Bailesh.
No, that was all I have to say, Chair.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to agree to the recommendation at page 159 of the agenda in that the board is asked to comment, which we have done, or not as the case may be, on the revised ISS ahead of the local pension committee meeting on 20th of March 2026, where approval will be sought. Is that agreed?
Sorry, Chair. Can I just ask if anybody's got any questions for that report? Thank you.
No. Thank you very much. Agenda item 10 is the climate-related disclosure progress update as pages 187 to 194 of the agenda. Kat, responsible investment analyst, will introduce the item. Thank you, Kat.
Perfect. Thank you. Morning, all. So yes, this is a report that we bring annually to the board, and this is kind of a general overview. The pension committee get kind of more detail on these matters as the body overseeing the investment side of the fund. But as kind of is set out in the investment strategy statement that we've kind of previously considered, the strategy sets out the importance of considering financially material factors in investment decisions, which is a core part of the fund's fiduciary duty. The fund includes climate risk in these considerations, as it is considered systematic in that it can impact all asset classes, sectors and regions that the fund invests in. So if we think of some examples, we consider the physical risks of such as flooding and how that may impact our infrastructure and property assets, but also transition risks and market uncertainty with how that impacts the fund. Due to this, it's important that, like other risks, climate risks are properly identified, monitored and managed. The fund undertakes this through investment decisions, engaging with investment managers, including LGPS Central, as well as our public reporting and monitoring, which is what this report kind of contributes to. The report sets out meaningful progress against the fund's net zero climate strategy, which was agreed by the local pension committee in 2023. The report shows the fund has already surpassed its first 2 interim targets, with its reducing its weighted average carbon intensity as well as its financed emissions against the 2030 target. Essentially, what these reductions mean is the fund is less exposed to transition risks from carbon pricing from any countries that introduce carbon pricing, and then any kind of regulatory shifts globally. So the fund has achieved this through increasing its allocation to climate solutions. This is across equity funds, debt, forestry and infrastructure. Importantly, the report sets out these allocations have not had a negative impact on the investment performance, with climate tilted equity funds outperforming their benchmarks and kind of long-term returns supported by these tilts towards companies with green revenues. All of this progress takes place against the backdrop of increasing assets under management and a commitment to remain well diversified across the fund. It demonstrates that integrating climate considerations is not about ethical preferences. It's about managing financially material risks, improving resilience and supporting stable long-term returns for the fund. We'll look to communicate these high-level results to scheme members alongside considering the outcome of the recent responsible investment survey, as Bullish mentioned, and that will support the review of the net zero strategy and approach to responsible investment more broadly across the fund. But I'll leave there for any comments or questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments? No? You're probably not going to be surprised that I might have a question when it comes to the climate and net zero. I've voiced before, I'm a big believer that we should separate the two, particularly when we're talking about investments. Climate change is one risk. Net zero is a completely different ballgame. I'm a firm believer we should be separating the two. But is there a cost, these climate disclosures? How much is it costing us with this? You mentioned that the investments are not negatively impacting, but does that take in consideration, could we have done better by avoiding these investments?
I don't know if Bullish wants to jump in there.
I'll have a go, Chair. So could we have done differently if we hadn't invested in certain investments? So our biggest kind of climate aware investment is an investment in the LGPS Central climate fund, if you like. Effectively, this is an equity fund, a very cheap to run equity fund as well. It costs less than 0.1% a year in management fees. The alternative would be just to leave it in an all-world equity fund, which is effectively what this climate fund is. So I think that there would be very minimal savings from management fees. The performance has been pretty much in line with that fund as well. So that is our biggest investment. I think Kat mentioned also some of these other investments such as forestry, for example, but we made that for a different reason. That was a true diversification play, and we made that investment maybe 10 years ago now. So before the onset of all the ESG push. So I'd like to think that we've made investments in a very risk-aware way, where we've not just done it for a climate purpose. We've done it to diversify. What we've done with that climate fund I mentioned from LGPS Central is remove the carbon risk that might arise if certain companies who are high in emissions were taxed in a particular way. So we've managed the risk of the fund in that way. And these are some of our biggest investments. So that climate fund and the Timberland investments.
Right, thank you. So just to clarify for my own understanding, when you're talking about climate, your concern is future potential costs from carbon emissions rather than the carbon emissions themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the byproduct is that we do have a slightly lower carbon weighting for the fund, but the real concern is that were these companies to be taxed in the future, the fund would be exposed to these taxes, and this is a way to mitigate those kind of taxes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Kat, was that your report finished?
Yes, yeah. And sorry,
Yes.
just to I guess point back to the report, I guess on paragraph 9, there's some of those examples of the performance of the climate funds versus the all world. So yeah, thank you, Chair.
Oh, thank you for steering us towards that. Any other questions or comments? No, I can't see anything come up. Sorry, bear with me. I've lost my place. There we go. So we are asked to note the climate-related disclosure progress update report. Can I take the report as duly noted?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 11 is the pension fund training needs self-assessment, pages 195 to 204 of the agenda. Kat is also presenting this agenda item. Thank you again, Kat.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the kind of annual training needs self-assessment and progress against the fund's training policy report that you get annually. So at the end of 2025, we carried out the fund's annual training needs assessment, and this is a questionnaire we sent out to all committee and board members with questions based on SIPFA's 8 core knowledge areas. So this was 39 questions. We just have 4 members outstanding across the committee and board, so we'll get Angie just to send a reminder out to members that haven't completed it, as this contributes to the fund's training programme for the year ahead, and that's also within the previous annual business plan and budget update. It was kind of appended, but we'll finalise for the version that goes to committee in March. Also, just as a reminder, under the current training policy, members are required to complete the Hyman's Aspire modules within 6 months of appointment. As of January 2026, we have 4 board members that are compliant with the modules most relevant to the board, and reminders will again be sent to those who have outstanding modules to complete. Ultimately, we report publicly and progress against this in the fund's annual report. So there's a recommendation just that any member that hasn't completed the assessment does so by the end of the week, and we'll send a reminder out, but I'll leave it there for any questions or comments.
Thank you again, Kat. Is there any questions or comments? No, thank you. I'm happy to move the recommendation that all members should complete the training needs assessment, if not yet completed, by Friday, 6th of February. Is that agreed?
Yes.
Thank you. Now I need to run off and check whether all my training is up to date. Agenda item 12 is the pension fund policy report at pages 205 to 298 of the agenda. We are back to Stuart, who's presenting this report. Over to you, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is an annual report that we provide to the board with a summary of the current policies or strategies that are in place. So any new or amended policies will be brought to the board and then presented to the Pensions Committee for approval at the subsequent meeting as the body responsible for the governance of the fund. So this year, other than the METIA strategies, the ISS and the FSS that have been detailed already in separate reports, the changes are relatively minor. There's been some changes made in relation to Fit for the Future based on what is known about that. at the moment. Other than that, not a huge amount I was planning to raise, but happy to take any questions on any aspect of the policies.
Thank you. Is there any comments or questions? No. Okay, I'm happy to agree to the recommendation at page 209 of the agenda, in that the board was recommended to comment on the revised policies and strategies ahead of the local pension committee meeting on 20th of March 2026, where approval will be sought. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 13 is the record keeping data improvement report at pages 299 to 22306 of the agenda. Stuart is also presenting this report. Over to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully, I think this is the last one from me. So this is another annual report. We took this presented this to the board last year for the first time in a while. So this is really just to outline our plans to maintain data improvement throughout the year. So there's three key areas that have been covered elsewhere: dashboards, McLeod, and the workflow review. And there's an appendix that details the steps that we take to make sure that our data is kept in a decent standard. Again, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Stuart. Is there any questions? Yeah, Andrew.
What's the retention period for maintaining employees' records for pensions? Just how long do you keep it? Because I'm assuming you keep it till death, and then how long after death do you keep the record?
So it's currently 100 years
Right, okay.
after death, which seems a lot, but we do get questions subsequently from family members in terms of claiming dependent pensions and what have you. So yeah, we do keep it for some time to make sure that we're able to answer any questions that do come up from time to time.
And have there been any impacts about retention where, because you're maintaining it on behalf of the pension authority, is there any issues about retaining records where they've moved between authorities, or do you maintain your little bit of it, or do you add the bits that come in as part of that process? Just so I'm understanding how an employee's record would be kept, if that makes sense.
So yeah, we retain the records that we have. So if somebody moves from the Leicestershire Fund to Warwickshire, for example, we retain a record that shows that we no longer have any liability, but the details that we held at the time whilst the member was in our fund is retained, again, to answer any potential questions that may occur later down the line, i.e. where's my pension? I'm sure I paid into the Leicestershire Fund. Where's my benefits?
So we'd retain that record, and we'd still retain that record until 100 years after death, just so I'm clear. So you've got quite a big responsibility. Right. Is that a statutory requirement, or is that something we set locally?
That was a local setting, but I believe it's in line with other authorities.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Andrew, and thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No. So the board is asked to know all areas of the record keeping data improvement report. Can I take the report as duly noted?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 14, that takes us to the final substantive item on the agenda, risk management and internal controls and fit for the future update at pages 307 to 318 of the agenda. We're back to Kat for this report. Thank you, Kat.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, sorry, let me just find my place. So again, this is another regular report which the board receives quarterly on risk management and internal controls. And we've also included a kind of brief update on fit for the future, although that's kind of been covered in previous items. So the risk register currently covers 19 risks across 6 areas, so investment, liability, employer, governance, operational, and regulatory. Each risk is assessed by their impact and likelihood to produce a current risk score, and then it's rescored once controls and future actions are considered to determine the residual risk score. There's only been one change to risk scores, along with several updates to the risk narrative. So I'll kind of just briefly walk through some of the headline changes. So we've got risk, the first risk in point 14. That's just a quick update to say that we've already had the strategic asset allocation at the January local pension committee, which was approved, and then it'll be next reviewed next year. The next point on risk 5, so assets held by the fund are ultimately insufficient to pay benefits due to individual members. So that's been updated to reflect that the 2025 fund valuation set out the 140% funding level as previously discussed. So as a result, that's reduced that risk significantly and has turned to a green kind of RAG rating, kind of moving from a 10 current risk score to 5. And it's been changed from treat of the risk to tolerate. We then have risks 6. So this is essentially about kind of employer data. So further action has been included to develop a monthly tracker for employers that post data to individual member records. And that's included within the current risk control. We then have risk 10. Sub-funds of individual employers are not monitored to ensure that there is the correct balance between risks to the fund and fair treatment to the employer. So an update has been made to reflect that pressure on the employer's financial situations are not only from contribution rates, but also funding challenges they may be facing more broadly. And then that report on the approach to cessation and exits has been discussed earlier. I went to the local pension committee and we'll go in March 2026 for formal approval. Risk 19, again, that's just referencing additional funding. It has been secured for 2 apprentice roles for pension section as previously discussed. And then probably one of the kind of key risks at the moment is risk 18. So proposed changes as a result of government propositions relating to regulations and guidance in relation to pooling and local government reorganisation and devolution. So we've updated the text to reflect the fund has responded to all consultations with regard to Fit for the Future. It's key pressure, recognising we're waiting for final regulations and guidance, and some of these regulations government intend to come in at the end of March, and obviously that's kind of not a long lead in time when we get the final regulations. And then we kind of go on to the government draft regulations and guidance and what's kind of coming up. I probably won't go into too much detail over that, as it's kind of a lot of these kind of changes that are coming into account are considered within the governance business plan as previously discussed, but happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you again, Kat. Any questions or comments?
Yes, sorry, I forgot to put my hand up.
I'll
physically put a hand up. It was just looking at risk 6. It looks like on risk 6, the mitigated risk, the impact is changed. Now, my experience of risk registers, the impact doesn't usually change. It's the likelihood that reduces. I just wondered, maybe not for meeting it, whether that needs looking at from that perspective. It was more of a comment than to show that I'd actually looked at the paper and read it from that point of view. That just needs have a look at that to see if that scoring needs amending.
Not sure if maybe Ian wants to come in on risk 6, or we can take it away for the next review.
Or risk 16, it's the regulatory on, I think,
16 on the
16 on. I'm just trying to find. Am I looking at the wrong? Yeah, it's just because the score, the impact score on the second where you've assessed it, the impact is 3 on the initial risk and 2 on the lower risk. sorry, on the mitigated risk, the impact usually stays the same. I just wondered whether or not that was just whether that was the case or whether it needs looking at. I don't think it's an issue at all. It's just a comment.
So, sorry, just looking at the risk, I think the impact looks to be the same on risk 6. So they're both 3, but the likelihood of the risk has reduced. Unless I'm looking at the wrong.
Are we talking about 16 or 6,
16.
Andrew?
16.
16, Kat, yeah. So on 16 it has changed in both, but I wonder if Ian might want to comment on the impact of likelihood, sorry, the impact from McLeod reducing over time. Given
Yeah, that may be it. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah. That's exactly it.
Okay, that makes sense now.
No.
Sorry, I was just looking at it from an overview perspective. Thanks for clarifying.
Andrew, thank you for looking at it in such detail. It's good of you.
That's definitely a good spot, Andrew.
Chair, there's a question, I think, in the chat for Ian from Mr. Soroya, if you could have a quick look, please.
Okay, my apologies if I missed that. It didn't come up.
No,
Didn't
it's
flag
not come
up.
up on this chat. I think he's trying to contact Ian directly.
Okay.
I think we'll do that outside the meeting. I'm not entirely sure which bit that relates to. I'm sorry, that
Okay,
was
thank you, Ian.
11 o'clock, so I'm not sure which report that relates to now.
Okay, thanks.
But I'm sure if he wants to bring it to the board, then he can email the chair outside of this meeting as well. Okay, is there any further questions? No. Okay, thank you. We are asked to note the risk management and internal controls report. Can I take the report as duly noted?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 15, any other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent? As I previously stated, I have no items of urgent business. I would like to remind members that the next meeting of the board is on the 29th of April 2026. I'd like to thank everyone that contributed with their reports and everyone that attended. I would like now to declare the meeting closed. Thank you all.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers all.